Hello and welcome to everyone joining us from around the globe for day 4 of our special series of webinars on COVID-19 dedicated today to working efficiently, working remotely. I'm Donatella Ponziani, ESA Downstream Gateway Officer, and I have the pleasure and the honor to be the moderator for this session. The COVID lockdown somehow accelerated the process of digitalization, impacting our way of living and working. A recent study conducted over 500 Italian managers showed that 84% of the interviewed see smart working as the future. In this context, it is quite difficult to imagine to go back to our past way of working without any difference. Our guest today will discuss about the future of smart working, what is the good balance among digital transformation, efficiency, and flexibility, as well as the social component in a working environment. And of course, what is the role of space and how can space support the change in this sector? From everywhere in the world, let's bring in our guest today. Jan Werner is a Director General who is hosting the webinar. Paola Pisano, Minister of Technological Innovation and Digitalization in the Italian government. Luca Parmitano is an astronaut. Øystein Filstad, Professor of Strategy and Entrepreneurship at the BI Norwegian Business School, and Luisa De Vita, Associate Professor of Economic Sociology at University La Sapienza in Rome, and Andrea Oliva, Head of Human Resources in Ferrari, Maranello. I welcome them all and thank them all for being with us today. I would like to start with my first question to Paola Pisano, Minister of Technological Innovation and Digitalization. Paola, good morning for you, good afternoon. How the acceleration of digital is going to impact our society, and how are we preparing for the future?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for inviting me in this important event. Well, digital transformation affects society and culture in a complex way because digital technologies dramatically change the way in which I am in mute?
No.
No, okay. Okay, sorry. Okay. So technology affects a lot our life, and the COVID-19 epidemic has made this impact more evident, but it's also reinforced the need for a coordinating all government policy approach to digital transformation. We can appreciate the positive effects, and digital technology enhance access to information and services, improve healthcare, enrich education, and create new jobs. But on the other hand, challenges arise related to the emergence of digital divides, to automation and destruction of jobs, to personal data protection, to privacy, especially in our country, security, and regulatory uncertainty. Designing and implementing a well-suited policies for the digital age is for us a complex challenge, but one that but it's a thing that we must embrace to reach a lot of benefit and potential. There are two areas, in my opinion, that are particularly taxing. The first is accelerating the provision of digital services and fostering the current use of digital technology across the different part and level of the government. The second thing is ensuring that digital transformation support the growth and the well-being. We need, of course, enhancing the benefit and preventing the worsening of negative effects. I think that digital transformation depends on four dimensions. The first dimension is connectivity, of course, and access to the connectivity. The second one is a coordinated approach, especially from the part of the government, to develop digital public services. What I really don't like is that the public sector should be it always been viewed as a B-rate client to which selling all the most obsolete technology. And now it's time to change, because today there is a Department of Digital Transformation whose core business is the development and deployment of scalable and cloud-based services, which has designed a coherent national data strategy, and which has the ambitious objective of making digital government real throughout the Italian territory. And all citizens must have the digital identity, should have access to the digital public services, and be provided with one access point to use them or pay for them. The third dimension is cooperation and collaboration, of course, with the private sector and with all the other countries. That is really important for us. And finally, the trust. Trust underpins digital transformation. To strengthen trust, we will encourage people and organizations to better manage digital security, privacy risk, and increase the customer protection online.
Thank you very much, Paola. I would like to build on what you are saying, Jan. Good morning, good afternoon to you as well. What is the importance of digital, and what is the impact of digital and data on space sector?
Yes, so good afternoon to everybody. Yes, space data in general terms is, of course, that is space. I mean, we see here Luca Parmitano, he would say data is not all. We have more in space than just data. But of course, data is what we bring back, what the astronauts bring back when they are doing experiments in space, what we bring back from satellites, from robotic missions. Data is a lot, but I would like to say that data is not all. Space is more than data, and communication is more than data. And of course, also communication is more than space. So therefore, to be a little bit modest, yes, from a point of space agency, we are always happy that space can bring a lot. But we have to understand that there is more than just technology, just data in the day-to-day communication. And this is one of the lessons I believe we got from the last weeks. And the good thing is we should not look back. We should look forward. We should take the experience from the past, but we should look forward how to use best the experience we have. What was good, what was bad, we will talk later on about that. For me, it's there is a clear thing. Data is one thing. Data is, let's say, that is frozen information because it's not any longer lively. When you have data, then it's frozen information. But I think humans are more than frozen information, and therefore we should try for the future to develop methods where we combine all the good experience of remote working, of digitalization here and there, but combine it also with humanity. I know it's a big word, but this is the task we have to do. Otherwise, we are in a difficult situation. We should avoid a new gap between rich and poor. We should avoid a gap between digital and analog. We should avoid gap between using technology and without technology. This is a very big challenge we have for the whole society, and therefore I'm very happy that we have this discussion this afternoon, and maybe at the end we come to some conclusion for that.
Thank you, Jan. Paola, Jan was mentioning the challenge of having the right technological tool. In terms of infrastructure, what are the platforms and the kind of connection that are needed for going correctly towards digital?
Yes, this is an important question because we need the network to support our services, and we have this kind of platform approach to create digital services. All the Italian government is promoting investment in communication infrastructure, especially ultra broadband networks, and encouraging the deployment of more fiber to drive a substantial increase in speed across technologies. A couple of weeks ago, we unlocked 1.6 billion euros to connect schools and SMEs through ultra-fast broadband technology. We also really pay attention to the connectivity in the rural and the remote areas, and that are, for us, is really important, especially during this period where we have to support the e-education or the smart working. We also create a fund of 50 million euro for the digitalization of the public administration. And our digital government strategy helps to ensure a more comprehensive approach to the digital transformation of the public sector. Of course, the important is not the translation from the analog process to in the digital process, but we need to, of course, create a new approach to the digitalization, and our approach is the approach of platform. We have different platforms that support different processes that are similar in all the public administration. For example, the platform named in Italian Pago PA. The meaning is pay inside the PA. It is the platform for the digital payment services. The other platform is the platform from the digital identity. We think that the digital identity is the first step after network to support the digitalization of the services inside the public administration. Then we have another platform named ANPR, and it's a database where we collect all the data of our citizens, and we share all these data for all the public administration. In addition, we are increasing adopting a mobile-first approach to the digital government. It seems to be normal for people that not live inside the public administration, but mobile first for the public administration is a revolutionary approach. During the epidemic, we launched a mobile application called Io, the meaning is me, and it's a single entry point through which all local and national bodies can provide the most common public services on citizens' smartphone. We are also drafting a bill that would provide for the use of the digital identity and the digital post for the communication between citizen and the public sector. I think that digital transformation and innovation need to be part of a structural reform of the state. And this because we wish to look at the future with some confidence.
Thank you very much, Paola. Jan, we have been hearing e-education connection in rural area. What can space do for it?
Space can help a lot because the very important thing is connectivity. Yeah? I mean, it's clear we need more than connectivity, but without connectivity, you cannot do anything. So the first thing is really for all of this, whether you do remote education, teleworking, international discussion, concurrent design work via video or whatever, you need connectivity. And this is, of course, in our modern world, it's done through satellites, satellites in geostationary orbit, or maybe also satellites in a lower orbit. That's another point. So connectivity is number one. Number two is that we have technology developed for different purposes. And one specific technology I would mention over here is when we are talking about digitalization, we should not only talk about nice discussions. I would not call it blah blah, but you need nice discussions where we are exchanging opinions and all of this. This is fine, but if you look into more detailed information, for instance, the last program of a new Ferrari engine, and you want to have this transported to another person for working on it, then you need a secured communication, a secured data sending and receiving, and that means security. Security is for digitalization very important, and there ESA is working on quantum key distribution, meaning we are using quantum technology really to secure the receiving and transmitting of data. So this is what space can deliver.
Thank you very much. During COVID lockdown, the only way to maintain contact with the external world was towards connected devices, so digital devices and remote communication. This is a common way to work, surely for astronauts, but it's not that common for us. I have a question for Luca Parmitano. Luca, what could you tell us about the advantages and drawbacks of remote communication when you are led to work in very exceptional conditions?
I would say that it's self-evident that communication is fundamental, of the utmost importance, such a fundamental key to a successful realization of a project like space flight or any operational environment. It's really hard for me to even talk about advantages. I would say that rather than advantages, I would the word that I would use is it forces us to create opportunities to think in a different way. One key element of remote communication is the time element. If communication is instantaneous, you use a certain type of technology and communication. If it's not instantaneous, you have to change completely that paradigm. And what I mean by that, there are conditions where you are just not capable of receiving instantaneous instruction and communications. And strangely enough, rather than talking about space, my experience with this, the experiment that we ran was when I was underwater during the Nemo expedition, where we imposed a time delay of 5 minutes between communication and 10 minutes communication, simulating what would happen if we had a mission control center based on Earth and a spacecraft and explorers on the surface of Mars. And we realized very quickly that voice communication was not very useful. And the written communication, text communication was better. So the time element, it's something that we don't think about anymore, but in a way we used to, because back when we didn't have technology available for instantaneous communication. Everything was written. We would write a letter. It would take time for the letter to go back and forth. And we were used to events developing in between. Nowadays, this is a thing of the past, but in the future, when we do have when we do have delay in between what the instantaneous communication says and what the time of receiving the instruction happens, we need procedures so that independent work can be done. That is for written communication. When we come to voice communication, again, I don't really see advantages in being remote. As you may know, about 75% of communication between people is done not by what we say, but everything else. It's our face expression, our gestures, our demeanor, and that part communicates just as much, if not more, than the actual words that we use. So when all you have is voice, we are forced to take some precautions. And those precautions are indispensable in order not to create mistakes or misunderstandings. In remote communication in operational environments, you have to have a contract, and that contract needs to be very clear from the beginning between the two parties that are communicating. The contract is not fixed, can be very variable, but it needs to be valid between the two parties communicating. So you can use humor if you want. You can use all the different aspects of normal communication that give personality to what you're saying. However, when it goes down to specific instructions, then it is important to develop a language that leads to not making mistakes, and it takes time to develop such a language. It is actually something that we need to train for. Now, not all environments and not all communications are operationally related. So my experience with remote communication is that depending on the use of the communication, you can use different contracts and different means of communication. So obviously the biggest experience I have is flying onto the space station. And we have several systems. We have a two-way video communication. We mostly use that for personal relationship. We once a week we get to communicate visually with our families, and this is wonderful. It's amazing that we can do that, but that communication, because we can use all of the features of visual inputs and feedback, is usually mostly for being able to recreate some sort of normality. And I would say that even in the future, it may be that it is more convenient to make it so, because it requires a lot of effort, a lot of effort, meaning you have to engage in the conversation when you are face to face with somebody, even if it's through video. Most of our communication, though, is through audio only, so only words. In that case, the contract changes, and when you are communicating operational instructions, there is a language that needs to be absolutely clear. That language, again, is developed through instruction, is developed through consistent training, is developed through procedures, and that's why we need to use it. It sounds a lot dry, but it's done in a way that creates the least possible amount of misunderstanding. And that is true also. That is true actually for any operational environment. If you can imagine communication between airplanes and ground, you probably can expect that from an external point of view, it sounds almost not understandable. And it's that kind of dry language that we use in technical communication. So rather than saying that there are advantages, I would say that remote communication forces us to think in a different way. And for the second part, what are the conditions? Well, once you develop that language, you can use it in many different ways, and in order to limit the waste of time. And what I mean by that is, once you develop that language and that vocabulary, it limits the interaction that is outside of the task that you're trying to focus on. So I would say that the one opportunity that it gives you is that once you have the language, you probably are efficient and can reach a level of efficiency that otherwise would be difficult to achieve in a different context. I hope I have answered the question.
Very well, thank you. And you drive the attention, you move the attention to one of the important things of communication, which is not just verbal communication, the richness of a communication. And it drives me to the next question. One of the success factors of building an effective team and work is creating a collaborative environment. This relies not just on rules, it relies on personal qualities and social relation. What kind of capabilities and values are required for effective collaborative environment in a smart working context? I would like to ask this question to Luisa De Vita, who is a professor of economic sociology. Luisa, hello.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for this invitation. Before to go to the capabilities required for workers, I think that first of all, it is the organizational structures that have to change, not only by becoming more flexible in the management of time and space, but above all by increasing the delegation of responsibility and autonomy of employee. A lot of research on smart working show how the ability of organization to increase the space of autonomy of their employee is essential to have a good performance. So go to your question. I think that from the point of view of workers, one of the essential skills are the ability to become independent in the management of their work. Of course, working remotely is different than working from the office, and therefore it is necessary to have the ability to innovate routines and way of doing things that we learn in the office. And I think that from this point of view, technologies offer a very wide possibility to share and exchange knowledge and stimulate also new attitude in problem solving with the identification, for example, of common strategy. So I think that the ability to share is a very important element, mostly in contemporary organization. We know that contemporary organizations have often open and mobile boundaries, so workers not only interact with a small group of colleagues, but also they work with different professionals who collaborate at different levels. So I think it's really important to build a new form of knowledge, a new form of task and routines. In addition, I think it's also really important to learn how to manage and regulate the workloads. The research on smart working show that usually who work remotely work harder. And this overwork, I think it can be positive, maybe in the early stage, in the first period. In the long run, it can increase the level of stress and, of course, lower performance. So also what we saw with this sanitary crisis with COVID was just the overload of work, especially, for example, for women. who experience a strong conflict, a strong work-family conflict, with a conflict between working and private life. So I think it's really important to find a balance, and of course are the organizational practice that have to define policy that balancing the time on work with the time dedicated to other personal needs. I think I hope to have the
yes, Luisa, thank you very much. I would like Andrea Oliva, you are head of human resources in Ferrari. I would like you to build on what Luisa is saying. What is the point of view of industrialists with respect to this question?
Yes, building on what Luisa said, let me say that personal interaction is very important in a company like ours that has the opportunity to have almost all the functions located in the same place. Although there are some capability that can overcome the challenge of, let's say, this lack of physical interaction, capability both on people and on manager. When we speak about people, we can speak especially about accountability or self-responsibility in order to organize their own job, but also the knowledge of remote working tools and communication methods. These are definitely something that is more instrumental for people. But then there are also values that have to be embedded into a company that want to embrace this journey, that are trust. First of all, trust in the people and trust in the team and across the team, because you don't need to be located near your teammate in order to be sure that you will put the same effort and the same energy and commitment in reaching the goal, the company goal or the team goal, even though it's not seated near to you. But also respect, because as Luisa said, respect for others' time, others' timeline, because again, smart working or remote working can easily, let's say, overload too much the time of a person. I think that there are also capabilities that have to be developed in manager of people that is not located in the same place. For instance, the information alignment, because when you don't have the team seated in your office, all the information flow must flow again in a different way. You must, as a manager, be sure that all the team is aligned, also the one that is not in the office. So be sure that not being in an office it doesn't become a constraint. And be sure that people don't lose their time in look for information or look if they have the last information on the table. And then even more important in managers is the ability to coach and feedback people, because again, with the video interaction, you lose all the nonverbal communication, as we said before. So it's even more difficult to empathize with the other person in order again to give a feedback or to share something that could have been done better, or at least just to be sure that what you communicate has been understood in a way that you meant to do it.
Thank you, Andrea. I would like to drive the attention to another point. When we do join work for problem solving or designing a solution, information is that can contribute to create a situational awareness among co-workers is extremely important. In what situation may it be important? What kind of problem can be organized by such a sharing of information, and how this sharing could be adapted in a smart working environment? I would like to ask this question to Øystein Filsted, who is Professor of Strategy and Entrepreneurship. You are on mute, Øystein.
Thank you, Donatella, and thank you for inviting me, to this exciting discussion. I think one of the profound changes that are happening as we're now digitizing a lot of our communication, we're also digitizing or task environments. So we are increasingly capturing a lot of the information about the things we're working on in a digital form, and we make it collective. We make it something that isn't simply communicated between people in pairs and then passed along a chain of communication. We are making a common shared representation of the problems we're working on, the environment we're working in. And this allows us to share an awareness of a situation that is unprecedented. We have, of course, in the past, we know the power of working on a team. We know that we can gather, 4 or 5, maybe 10 people around the whiteboard, work on something together because we all see what's going on. And this is the key, of course, to a number of problem-solving processes, agile processes. The difference that happens now is that we can scale that from having 5 people aware of what's going on to having 1,000 people or 10,000 people being aware of the problem that they are somehow or another jointly working on. And I think this is going to change, and it is already changing a lot of things. We see this a lot in the open source movement, where we can have tens of thousands of programmers working on the same code with very little hierarchical coordination and supervision of what they're doing. We're seeing some of this moving into pharmaceutical work, into drug discovery, and we're seeing some of this happening now during the COVID pandemic, of the pharmaceutical companies and the public research organizations, science organizations, collaborating much more broadly, sharing information about the state of the problem, sharing data about the experience that they have. And this enables a simultaneity of working that is unprecedented. And it really affects our ability to collaborate, but it also affects fundamentally the way we think about organizing. Because we have, for a few thousand years, had phenomenal success with hierarchies where people gather information about what's going on, and then they get the larger picture, and then they coordinate other people's work. That's the way we think about organizing. This enables a flat form of organizing where we organize directly by sharing the information of the environment we're in. And I think we're only in the beginning of seeing how this will actually change our joint work. Now, some of the problems that we're working on that are really important have a lot of geographic representations and manifestations, and the tracking of the movement of epidemics, the tracking of problems associated with pollution and resources and so forth. And so geographical representations of problems and of the environments in which they exist are important. And there I think that a lot of space technology will become very important, already is, but will increase in its importance in order to enable an overall awareness of the environment that we all depend on and that we're working in. So we see these things happening across military operations, where the briefings are, from what I understand, changing from smaller units and teams to very large scale forms of briefing. We see it in software development. I think it's actually a large number of areas where this will be relevant. The other that it enables is self-assembly. Self-assembly of teams, another very important management task of determining, who's suited for the job, who's going to work with whom. And with these platforms that are coming in, a lot of people, a lot of groups are being placed with the capabilities to self-identify those that they need to work with, and to team up, form temporary teams, and organize and coordinate their work around these platforms. So I think a lot is going to change there.
Thank you very much, Øystein. Luca, I would like to ask you, bring together the two last questions, the importance of collaborative environment and your testimony on the importance of sharing information.
So I'm actually going to use a little bit of everything that's been said by Luisa, Andrea, and Øystein, because when you work in a remote environment and you have to use remote communication, it really is of the utmost importance to be able to get the right feedback. Not only the leader has to be able to give feedback, but he has to be able to receive feedback from everybody else. How do you create an open environment of good communication flow when you are not physically in front of the other people? You have to come up with a plan prior to finding yourself in that field. So in my experience, and that's really all I can talk about, my experience is that in order to have an efficient flow of communication in a remote working, you have to prepare, which is not surprising, but what I mean by that is you are not always going to be and not permanently be in a remote situation. Right now we are all forced in performing remotely, but sooner or later, and in any working environment, you have the chance to actually create a face-to-face meeting. That is a good chance to create the rules of how the feedback is going to be passed on bidirectionally, both bottom up and up towards the bottom. It's easier when we are all working towards the same goal to feel open about talking and improving the project that we're working on. However, even though we have a big common goal, not everybody is working in the same way towards the goal. Everybody has individual tasks that are completely different. So in order to create an environment, even remotely, where everybody is working on his own personal task, I think it's important to create an environment that motivates individuals to understand that individual tasks that may seem menial in the end are all part of the same big common goal. And that's really, it starts from the leadership. And a little anecdote that I like to talk about is on the space station, we have incredibly valuable experiments. We have very fun, interesting activities like extravehicular activities or robotic activities that are very visible and fun and challenging. Or we may have cleaning duties or fixing the toilet. Now, we all share those duties, and even when you're performing the most menial job, you have to understand that that job that you're doing is contributing, freeing somebody else to perform something that is incredibly valuable at that moment. This common understanding, this common philosophy, this common culture of contribution can be prepared before finding yourself in a remote situation. And that way, I'm going to something that Øystein said, that's the best way that you can create a system of delegation. if you're working with people that are prepared and that have not only very clear the common great goal, but the individual projects and objectives, now as a leader, you can delegate and find yourself in a remote situation without having to rely on constant instruction and constant communication for the job to get done. So these are three aspects. Of course, the full picture is always a lot more complicated, but I think that having a common goal, having a good system of feedback that goes both way, up, down, and down, up, and the understanding that it's important not to center everything, but to delegate, those are three principles that really create an environment where even remote working can be extremely efficient.
Thank you very much, Luca. Andrea, I would like to build on what Luca is saying. Now we have the ideal situation described by Luca, by Oysten, and Luisa. But how, on the field, do you recruit people who have the right complementary capabilities for creating a collaborative environment, especially in view of smart working?
Well, yes, especially in view of the smart working, I would say that we need to assess, of course, all the capability that we spoke before, and also the ability in order to use tools and systems for remote working. Well, actually, we already use, in order to understand the second aspect, for instance, video interviews. Video interviews is a very quick tool, also useful to connect with faraway people, but can also give you immediately the perception how the person can use it, can use the technology, and can also have the ability to express in a crucial moment like an interview, a recruiting interview, how he can express his strength and also the willingness that he wants to have to come to the company, to work for a company. So it's an excellent, easy tool in order to assess something. Then there are a lot of online and digital tools that are progressively increasing in this year in order to better assess capabilities, both technical and personal capabilities. Besides, of course, the ability of the recruiter, that is still the center of all the recruiting method. I would say that we should also move a little bit forward and continue to have a strong partnership with university, because I believe that also during a course of study, collaborative remote working should be something that is also used during university in order to prepare people once they come to the work environment to know what they talk about and to have already a background. And maybe as a company, we can also use internship, not just to share learnings and everything we know inside the company, but also relieve a few days in order to let people understand what does mean work remotely. And so, again, to prepare them as soon as we can in order to be effective with it.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Now, let's switch the subject. Let's talk about technological innovation. In the future, we may figure out the presence of new actors, not people, but digital actors in the working environment. Luca, what is your experience with robots?
Wow, that is an interesting question. I have actually extensive experience as an operator of robots. First of all, we have to define what a robot is. I think that we can imagine something like Robonaut, which is a humanoid type of robot that I had on my first experience on the space station. And I would say that currently we are pretty far away from having a real use in technology for exploration for humanoid robots, but nonetheless, it is an interesting field. And then I have had experience working remotely with two kinds of robots. One was called K11 back in 2013, and more recently with Analog One, another European robot. And it actually fits quite well in the fields of exploration and remote working, because we use robots exactly as a proxy. We can imagine an environment that is extremely dangerous and hard to explore for humans, but that can be prepped or explored by proxy through a rover. And the technology that we are trying to develop is how can we operate a robot remotely and at the same time having the same feedback, once again, the magic word feedback, for the astronaut that is operating the robot, astronaut or scientist, operator, whoever is on the other side. So just like we have had incredible advances in robotic teleoperations in medicine, where we have seen surgeons using robotics for surgery in environments that are otherwise hard to reach, especially in terms of micro environments. In space technology, technology helps us by the use of haptics. One of the experiments that I worked on while I was on the space station in my last mission had me use a system of haptics to give physical feedback to the operator, meaning that while I was driving a rover on Earth and trying to capture samples from the ground, I could actually have feedback by the robotic arm, whether I was impacting something, holding something, and so on. So robots are complementary in exploration or in any field where you have to work remotely because of contingencies that are different from what we're living now. The experience that we get from that technology, I think, can be applied to other fields, and it is certainly something that we need to keep working on. Certainly in my field, but I would say that there are other fields where we can use them, also on Earth. As a matter of fact, just to conclude again, trying to stay as concise as I can, I have had experience with robots both underwater, where I tested an underwater rover that could be an example of what can be done on a different planet that is covered with vast surface of water, but also for civil service when we are trying to get into areas where it is very hard to operate for rescue and so on. And also underground, we don't usually think of drones as robots, but that's what they are. And part of that testing that I've done underground through the ESA Caves program and CaveX has been to test the capability of using drones, flying drones specifically designed in order to do exploration. Now, those same technology can be used in, imagine an area that is hit by an earthquake and has small spaces that are hard to explore. And imagine flying a mini drone inside those areas. You need remote control technology in order to be able to perform those tasks. So I would say that going back to working efficiently in remotely drone technology, remote control technology is definitely something that we need to invest on, and understanding all the potential of this technology.
Thank you, Luca. I would like to ask now, from the socioeconomic point of view, what are the implications of having digital actors in a working environment? I would like to ask this question to Luisa and to Einstein, and we can start with Luisa.
Yes, about this point, sociologists have two positions. They speak for a high and low route of changing. The first is the optimistic position, and the general consequences would be a better job, and every organizational level would be maybe enriched by information technology, digitalization, and robot. So people will be employed less as machine operators and more in the role of mediator of experience, decision makers, and coordinators. On the opposite side, on the contrary, the pessimistic argument that unfortunately I think is more realistic refers to a polarization of qualification, according to which robots will also destroy many jobs. More specifically, it's a sort of a U-shaped polarization of the labor market, in which to be eroded or replaced are above all medium level position, while we have a growth of high qualification activities like the activities described by Luca, and on the opposite side, the elementary position, for example, in care sector or in personal service. So we, from this perspective, we have a well-qualified, protected job on one side, and job with low protection, low wage, and worse employment condition on the other. The data of change, of this change in European member state, in the structure, in the employment structure of the European member state, we can see a very different consequence, and this difference, I think, I'm sure, are linked to the difference in the system of industrial relation and sectorial composition. But beyond this difference, we can already see an increasing of inequalities. And of course, also the smart working, the remote working is not suitable for all the workers. In this conversation, we are all smart workers, but of course, it's impossible to apply this kind of work to all workers. So I think it's very important to manage this change by implementing also active employment policies. Firms, of course, may demands for a new form of flexibility, for new digitalization, as well as ask people for new type of skill and competencies. But I think it's also important to protect workers, to give the possibility of following training paths, and also to be protected in case of job loss. So I think it's really important that government may be forced to rethink also institutional regime to avoid a new deeper polarization among workers that would lead to an increase of social inequalities. So I think it's from sociological and socioeconomic point of view is really an important topic to address inequality also.
Thank you, Luisa. Øystein?
Well, I agree with a lot of the excellent points that Luisa is making here, and I think we have these two aspects of it. I remain an optimist, perhaps naively, but I believe that this does enable us to protect humans from doing hazardous jobs. And I think Luca gave us some good examples of what that might be and how it would work. And I think that we're dealing both with physical robots, and we're dealing with robots that are purely digital that will be entering in on some of these higher level analytical problem solving types of jobs. So I don't think we're looking at one where it's only those that are doing the physical, labor that will be affected. I think we will see people who have jobs that are doing knowledge-based but relatively simple knowledge-based work, having to adapt, and I think it's going to adapt people who are doing a lot of managerial coordination work. So I think the changes that are coming are profound in terms of the nature of the workforce, the nature of jobs. I think it will allow us, in the end, to create more value. That's the essence of all technology. So a question then becomes, how do we enable everyone to actually participate in this value creation? Because I think it's important that people have the chance not only to receive the gains from it, but actually to also play a real role. It's an important part of a meaningful life to do that. And that is going to require education, socialization of people, and involvement in many ways for a greater good. The part that I'm not so optimistic about is the transition into this. I think that if we look historically at the transition into the industrial era, it was brutal, very painful, and it took quite a while before we then, gained broadly all the benefits that we now have from it, and hopefully we can have learned some lessons from those previous changes in order to make this a smoother transition towards something that stands to provide us with a number of benefits. I think it does change also the role of education, what we actually will be training people to do, and finally, I think we also have to recognize that our work or places of jobs have been major social arenas where we actually meet with people and we act out as human beings. It's an important part of our existence, and we can't just simply uproot that and expect that also will be painless. So I think there are a lot of implications across a wide variety of this, but I think I am an optimist. I choose to be an optimist, but we will have to make the transitory steps. And I think another one, we from the Industrial Revolution, we have seen people go from 12, 15-hour workdays, and we have gained the benefit in most countries around the world, the benefit of understanding that we can actually work and live better by working. In Norway, it's 7.5 hours a day. And again, if we have machines doing more, we'll probably have to have one more adjustment of the expectation of how many hours we're supposed to put in a day and put it into work in order to obtain the benefits that give us a chance to live full lives.
Thank you very much, Øystein. And Jan, I would like to ask, what is your opinion? What is your view on the role of digital actors in our future working environment?
I'm an optimist, really, but optimist does not mean to be naive, as you said, Øystein. It's not necessarily that you are, at the same time, when you're an optimist, that you have to be naive. So optimist for me means also to look into all the issues which may happen and to find solutions for that. So when we are talking about digitalization of work, then of course we can discuss about, is that really meaning that we have no workers any longer, that we have more unemployment? It is the same like in the past it was saying digitalization will be the paperless office, and we have more paper than ever now in offices. So that means I don't believe that we have automatically really less work to be done by humans. This can really be done, but of course, meaning to be an optimist means also to look to some other aspects. For instance, what for me is the biggest point is we are looking to the positive effect of digitalization of information also as a democratization of information. That means the information is available worldwide for each and everyone. For each and everyone? Not really, because we might have a digital gap. Not each and everyone has really the possibility to access the data. And this is a societal challenge we have really to face, and we have to tackle and have to find a solution for that. So if we are really going for more digital, then it means also to give people a possibility to have the access to this digital world. And then we can take all the benefits of it using artificial intelligence, concurrent design. We can use machine learning, better work with big data, having global cooperation. But all of this, again, comes back to the situation. We should not have the society splitting up in people having the access and people who don't have the access. And therefore, this is for me the critical point which we have to solve.
Thank you very much, Jan. We are running out of time. Before leaving the floor to you for the final statement, I would like to ask a last question to Paola Pisano. Paola, the global emergencies has highlighted the importance of international cooperation, and the power of innovation is even more evident. Which kind of services will be provided to the citizens of the future, of tomorrow, and what will be the city of the future?
This is a very, very nice question. What we are doing as a project is try to use innovative technologies such as robot, drones, autonomous mobility, remote technology to provide new services and benefits for the citizen, especially again in the rural community, and also focused on SME and little organization inside our country. For this reason, and also because I am a super fan of space technology, on March 31st, we launched a call for proposal named Space in Response to COVID-19 Outbreak, together with ESA and with the support of the Italian Space Agency. And we collect a lot of nice idea from our company. We received more than 120 proposals in the first 3 weeks. Almost of these proposals were from Italian company, and we will use space technology to improve services for our citizens. The important thing is that we need also to help citizen and also government to understand the rule of technology, because new technology is not always positive or always negative, but the advantages or challenging depending on how we use the technology and in which context we use the technology. Of course, the things that in which we believe a lot is that digital and technology transformation is something related with doing things. So if you want to decrease the digital divide, you need to offer digital services. If you want that citizens understand the potential of new technology, you need to give to citizens new services to try in order to understand the potential of new technology, the potential of use drone, for example, especially in problematic situations such as the COVID situation, or the importance of use robot inside the city, for example. The problem in Italy is that we need an adequate regulation. So we don't know, for example, in Italy, how many norm and bill we have inside our legislation, and normally we create a very strict regulation for the innovation. So what we need to do, in my opinion, is unleash innovation and encourage policy experimentation and new business model in our country. And we need to align regulation with the agile and flexible way in which technology can be used. So understand technology, try technology, and then regulate technology, not and the other side that normally we do in our legislation. Of course, government and so public and private and research centers need to work together to shape the digital future and to give to our country the immense opportunity of the digital transformation, improving life of people, and as everybody say, not leaving anybody behind. This big transformation that can give a lot of opportunity, especially to a part of people that is not able to reach this kind of opportunity in this moment.
Thank you very much, Paola. Jan, I leave the floor to you for the final conclusion. In the meantime, I thank you all the speakers for your very, very rich contribution. It was amazing to listen to you. Jan, I leave the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Donatella, for organizing this webinar. Thank you very much to all of you for participating and giving very, very important inputs. The title of the webinar was Working Remotely, Working Efficiently. So that means, yes, we discussed about digital working environment, and it's clear it has many opportunities to use digitalization for work. It has also some challenges we discussed about and some consequences, for instance, change of organizations towards more flat hierarchy, which is a big challenge for some organizations. Digitalization and all this digital working environment can help to do the things right. But don't forget, we have to do, the more important thing is to do the right things. And therefore, from my point of view, digitalization is fine, but it's not the magic solution for all the problems we are facing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jan. I thank you again, all the speakers. I give the rendezvous to to the public. To next week, we have the last webinar of the series on the 15th of June. We are going to discuss how to reinvent your business model. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye.